Okay, let's go. Hello everyone, welcome to a new Dynasty DevLog to the channel. This is John and we'll talk a little bit about the improvement I've made on the spell system. Up until now in the game you could only customize 4 of your spells and the last spell was reserved for a jump, a dash. Here you could only select 4 of your spells and here wasn't customizable because the dash would work in a little bit different way than other spells and I couldn't really mix them together. So to understand a little bit on how the logic of the spell works, let's go into Photoshop. How do the logic behind the spell work in the game? So first we have the input manager. Alright, so the input is gonna collect the input when you press Q, W, E, R and then the spacebar. The input is the input manager is listening for those input. When you press this keyboard, it's gonna send the information to the spell manager. Alright, and the spell manager is responsible for firing the spell. So that's the basic idea, right? It's a little bit more complex than this because, for example, the spell we have to check before we launch the spell, can we launch the spell? That means, is it in cooldown or not? Right? So it's gonna be a little bit more like this. The input manager registers a button press. It tells the spell manager, and the spell manager is gonna check, okay, is this spell in cooldown? And if it's not in cooldown, then let's launch the spell. When the spell is used, then it starts the cooldown. So next time, if we just press the key again, we're gonna go again from the input manager that say, okay, this key has been pressed. The spell manager is like, okay, so this is the key for spell 1. The spell 1, is it in cooldown? Yes, it's in cooldown. So can we do the spell? No, we can't do the spell. And then the cooldown is gonna go down. Alright, so what's different between a normal spell and a dash? Well, the difference between the dash is, for a dash, I want it to be able to dash a few times. So you have a number of dash. So you have some, let's call them charges. So you have different charges, right? And I don't want the cooldown to start until we use all of our charge. For example, if we have 3 dash, and then the dash is, I don't know, 5-second cooldown. Well, I don't want the 5-second cooldown to start right away when I press the button. In this logic, when the spell is fired, it starts the cooldown. But here, for my dash, I only wanted the cooldown to start after 3 times, after the number of charges I have. And maybe in the game, I will add a way to collect new charges and to add more charges so you can do more dash. Alright? So here the logic would be like, okay, the first time we play, we used 1, we use twice, we use 3 times, and after we use 3 times, the cooldown starts. So that means while it's in cooldown, we can't use it again. So to be able to put any spells in any slots, for example, to be able to put a dash here and I don't know, a fireball here, I need that all my slots are able to handle all the different possibilities of logic. That means that when we have the input, alright, it still goes to the spell manager. Alright, so the spell manager is then gonna check if this spell is in cooldown, and if it's not in cooldown, it's gonna do the spell. So here we have the same logic as before, but we want to implement a logic that checks also if the spells can be charged or not. So where do we put it? Do we put it after input? Well, of course not. Well, put it just here, right? So between the cooldown, so if the spell is not in cooldown, before we do the spell, we have to do another check. So first I created a boolean. A boolean is something that can either be true or false. And I call this boolean, does it have a charge? Right? So if it have a charge, it's true. If it doesn't have a charge, it's false. So this is the 2 different cases. If we don't have a charge, we're gonna fire the spell and the spell is gonna start the cooldown. That's it. If we have a charge, we count how many times we use the charge. So we do count plus 1, and when the count is equal to the charge, then we start the cooldown. There you go. So here, charge, we're gonna fire a spell. We add 1 to a count, and when the count is equal to charge, we start the cooldown, not before. So for example, the input, you get an input, press Q, spell manager say, okay, Q spell, is it in cooldown? No, it's not in cooldown. Does it have a charge? Yes or no? No. Launch the spell, start the cooldown. Yes. Launch the spell, add to the count. And we go again. Q, blah, blah, blah. Charge, add to the count get equal to the number of charge, and when it's equal to the number of charge, then we start the cooldown. Alright, that's the logic. It's not too difficult, but honestly, trying to write this in code when you have the logic, when you're a beginner developer, it's just so, I mean, it's not easy. It's just making nuts in your head. You have so many if statements. I mean, not so many, but you still have quite a lot. I mean, let's go check the code. I mean, it's not nothing too special, but so here, if you have the input and the spell is not in cooldown, then if you can't have charge, you do the spell. If you have charge, then you check the number of charge. If the charge is equal to the number of max charge, then you start the cooldown. If it's not equal to the number of max charge yet, then you launch the spell and you add 1 to the charge. And all of this works, except then when you try like this and then you start playing the game, you realize that this logic runs every frame in the game, right? So that means if you don't have a small cooldown, the spells, if you have three charges, they're gonna be expended in 3 frames. And that's not what you want. You don't want the player to be able to use the spell 3 times in 1 frame. I mean, that's not fun. So here inside the count, when you fire a spell, you need to have another small cooldown that you don't show the player because it doesn't matter. You need to have another small cooldown to play before you can start this new spell again. And so that's another layer of if statement. So if you have a charge and the spell is not in cooldown, the small cooldown, then you wait for the cooldown to be over, then you blah blah blah. Okay, you kind of understand the idea. And you understand why, I had a headache yesterday night. I mean, I'm sure for lots of you it doesn't sound complicated, and I'm sure this is probably spaghetti code. But like, please give me some advice about this. It's so many if statements. Maybe there is a much easier way to do it that I'm not aware of. So please enlighten me. Alright, let's go in the game now to see how it looks like. Let's go back to the menu. Let's just reset it. Let's choose maybe the fireball. And let's just go to the fireball. Let's say that it can have charge, and that's another wonderful thing about scriptable objects. It's just you can do whatever you want. Now it can have charge, and I say there is 3 charge. So let's go back to the game. We start. And here you will see it just doesn't count. So I have my spell, and you can see every time I use it, it goes into cooldown. Why is that? It's because the logic I just showed you is not implemented on every space for now. I just implemented it in the space bar. Why? Well, just because that way I can just try it and see if it works and not break everything. So if we just put this in space now, go back to the game, press space once, you see the cooldown didn't start. Press 2 times, the cooldown didn't start. 3 times, the cooldown is starting. It's a very short cooldown, but for example, if we put, where is it, cooldown? Cooldown 0.5, let's put at 5. Go back to the game, 1, 2, I'll already press 1, and the cooldown 5 seconds. Scriptable object, mwah, love it. Amazing. All right, so that's about it. And there you have it. The logic is working, and I'm really happy with it. Alright, now one thing I want to do is at the end of each devlog, I want to have one run where I show you a little bit the state of the game in one run and one game loop, for example. It's gonna be a way to see the game develop along the devlogs. So let's do it. Let's go to the menu, let's choose our skills, let's put all the fireball here, the dash in space, just because, and let's choose the... Alright, there we go. Oh, let me just take away the charge from the fireball, so it's just started. And let's go put the cooldown in 0.5, just because it's fun firing. It's my game, I do whatever I want. And let's go. So there you have it. My dash, I can dash 3 times. Yep. And I'm moving. We can fire both. Maybe you have one of the main difference you have from last week also is like now you can move while firing, and that wasn't the case before. I also love the little tail of the fireball. Looks really nice. All right, let's keep moving. Up, there you go. Attack. All right, kill everyone. Move forward. Kill everyone here and win the game. Up, we get some new rewards, and we still have the tower defense game. Let's say we had a nice build. Of course, the build doesn't change during the run for now, but this is something that's maybe gonna be implemented in the next few weeks. And then we start the tower defense. There is nothing yet in the tower defense except for the first 2 waves, so it's not that fun yet. But yeah, that's the state of the game, and I think it's important to just show what's the game look like for now. Alright, we start a new wave. Let's keep firing while we wait for them. Let's fire as much as possible. Alright, and that's it. Alright, the game is finished. There is no third wave, so nothing is gonna happen here. And that's the game. There is no windscreen after the tower defense for now, but that's the state of the game for now. I think we are getting somewhere. Now the spells are going to be customizable. You can put every dash you want in every slots. The main reason I did that is because I wanted to implement new dashes, so that means you can jump around everywhere, and that was the first step to do it, is to make the game able to understand dash and also charges in a spell. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope to see you in the next devlogs. I hope you're excited to follow the progress of the game and maybe excited to play it one day. Subscribe to the channel, like the video. It really means a lot to me, and I hope you're excited to see the devlog next week. Bye bye.